Do you see now the difference in our power?
I don't know if you guys heard of a little game called Black Myth Wukong. A little game made by an indie studio somewhere in China. But this game came out and it caught my attention immediately because, I love mythology, I love lore, I love story. And the Chinese, mythos is something that I'm not really too familiar with, and this game I've seen it as a perfect opportunity to learn a little bit about it, and that was the thing that originally got me hooked. But when I purchased the game, right, fast forward, the game comes out, I purchased the game, it's a huge success. The game is breaking records all over the place. 10 million copies sold. It's breaking the Steam charts. I think it's like number 2, number 3 on the list. It's insane. You did have that little thing where like IGN and a bunch of other news outlets were hating on the game because they didn't put enough politics into the game. China, they really have their own beliefs and whatnot, and it kind of collide with what the West is currently trying to do. So that was a little issue. A lot of the game journalists were like rating the game negatively because of that. But when you just focus on the gameplay elements of it, first off, I like the game a lot. It's very fun. What I didn't know going into the game is that this is a Soul-esque type of game. There is like talks about how Souls like is it really? It's really like a mix between God of War and like an Elden Ring type of thing. It's not truly difficult like those games, but it's not easy like God of War, right? It's somewhere in between. But for me personally, I never played a Souls-like game. I know, Moonsault, what are you doing? I never played Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, none of them. Never played Sekiro, never played Elden Ring. So this was like my first experience to like all these bosses and hidden locations, no map, explore, level up your character. It was my first like real experience to it. And when I first there was a boss early on, the big head guy. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. The big head guy, I couldn't beat him. I ran past him after dying like 10 times, and I was like, I'll come back to the guy. And then when I went back like later on, once I got good at the game to fight him, he was gone. I don't know if that's a bug, I don't know if it's a glitch. I'm still salty about that to this day. But there was another boss, he was like a serpent type of guy. That was my first true like awakening to this is what a Souls game is. Like I was playing against him and I was dying and I was getting angry. I'm like, bro, like cause in my mind this game is like God of War, right? I don't know yet that it's like a Souls game. So I am getting clapped up by this god and I'm like, what is going on? This game sucks. If the whole game is like this, it's a horrible purchase. But I was live streaming it, I was talking with the chat, and we were just having like a little discussion as I was fighting that boss. And this is when I first off, I defeated that boss, but then as I continued to progress, this is when I started to like come around to the idea of like, this is what the game is. You fight a boss, you learn its patterns, you learn spacing, you learn timing, you learn all of these things. And then once I realized that's what the game was trying to tell me, what the game is about, I was like, okay, this is fire. And there's discussions right now whether or not this should be game of the year. There's some games that came out this year that was a heavy flop, but then there's some games that came out that was a huge success. You talk about Helldivers. I think there was another game somewhere over there, but this game, right? There's a few games right now that's like massive. There are always been people who's saying like this game is like basically just a generic game. Like there's 10, 20 other games just like this one. They vary in quality, vary in gameplay, but they're pretty much doing the same thing, right? Helldivers is really like an original game is what a lot of people say. I never played Helldivers. I wanted to play it, but I had no one to play it with, so I skipped out on the game. But this one here is pretty fun to me. Even though there's been times where I got stuck on a boss for like, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The one like tiger rat wind god, I got stuck on him for like 6 hours. Literally. Like really like 7, bro. But it was so fun though. Like I was fighting against him and I was really trying to understand his patterns and also how to use each one of my abilities. You hold R2 and you choose when to use your abilities. And that was so fun to me, like figuring out what order to do what and what's the most optimal way to use like your resources. One thing that did kind of suck about this game, and I don't know if Elden Ring and other Souls games do this, but after like getting clapped up by that tiger boss for like 3 hours, the game put up an invisible wall and I could not fight that boss until I gained another like 2-3 levels of experience. So I had to go like fight random NPCs to gain levels, and then I could try the boss again. So that part I didn't like, and I don't know if that's like a common thing throughout, because I was full in on the idea of like learning about like how like patterns and all that stuff, and when the game prevented me from fighting the boss is when I started to feel like I was like making progress. It started to feel like I was understanding what was happening, what I need to do, and I wanted to just keep going. And the game literally prevented me. And now that was the only time where that happened. I think that was the boss where I struggled the most on. There's been some other bosses in the game where it took me like an hour, 2 hours, 40 minutes. It's really a fun game, you know. I kind of get stuck at times playing the same games over and over and over. So to play this game with this huge world, all of these different bosses, a huge variety in terms of gameplays. I like how you can level up your character, but then if you put your tokens or whatever into the wrong stats, you can take it away and then put it into other stats. I don't know if other games do that, like a Spider-Man or a God of War. I don't think God of War does that, but that was a really good thing. If I wasn't able to do that, I would have been screwed, but that's really fun as well. I just think this game overall is like a really solid experience. No battle passes, no shops, no skins, none of that. It's just like a solid game, bro. I love that. I love how you have these games over here on the left who are trying to be super greedy. They're doing everything from skins, battle passes, shop, cosmetics, 3-day early access, all of this garbage. But then you have other games on the right, like an Elden Ring, like a Black Myth, right? There's some other games who fall into the category, but they're just trying to make the best game possible with the best gameplay possible, the best world story and everything, and then that's it, right? And that's really like what gaming used to be, and I'm glad that there's certain games out there that's still doing that, and they're doing that to huge success. When the game drops, everyone loves it, right? Everyone loves it. And I wasn't expecting it to be a Souls game, you know. I was not expecting it at all. I thought it was basically like a Chinese God of War, but it's a hybrid, you know. It's a hybrid between the two. But yeah,